Hey bro, CRT, how are you? We are live now. I'll just be sharing the link around in different places.
Okay, thanks.
And yeah, while I do that again, man, thank you for sparing some time. I think this is after a very long time we are speaking again publicly together.
Yes,
I think this will be an
thanks for
interesting
having me.
discussion. Sure, dude. It's always a pleasure. So first, I'll just put this on Twitter. Do you want me to tag you as well?
Hello?
Yeah, yeah, CRT. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. I had to attend something, so it was a momentary. I
Okay,
got
okay,
diverted.
okay, okay. I'm just putting the link on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. And now for Telegram. So we had, yeah, a couple of people have already joined in. I think if more people will come in from Telegram once we share it there.
Okay, let me share it on Telegram.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
CRT bro, let me know when you're done sharing. Then we can start.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I'm done sharing both on Twitter and Telegram. Done.
Okay, sure. I think we can start with probably the biggest fiasco of them all in recent times. I know it's been done quite to the death, but I'm sure you do have some other angles as well. And even I haven't really talked a lot about this publicly. So, do you want to
Yes.
start off with the entire Nupur Sharma issue?
Yes, let's talk about the Nupur Sharma issue because one thing uh, I'm very annoyed with it. I mean, इतनी simping हो रही है, and it's not actually deserved at all. I mean, what Nupur has saved has been saved by countless people thousands of times earlier. I mean, it's nothing original at all, and लोग उसके बारे में पता नहीं क्या कह रहे हैं, मर्दानी शत्राणी एंड आई मीन I see my boomer parents listening to various kind of speeches on YouTube, and I mean, the तारीफों के पुल रुक ही नहीं रहे हैं.
Yeah,
And
she's become like our Joan of Arc, right wing, Raita wing. सबका मतलब all the
at
factions
least
are united in
original Joan
simply
of Arc uh, fought
actually
or
died.
tried.
Actually got martyred.
Yes, I mean, she actually died and she actually fought. Two things.
Yeah.
Nupur neither actually fought nor actually died.
Hmm.
फुकड़ के ही मार्टिर बना के रख दिया लोगों ने.
हाँ
वो
सही में.
जेड वो जेड
मैक्स
से
मैक्स
चली
टू
थी.
मैक्स उसका दिल्ली का लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली का कोई टिकट कट गया, वो भी वो जीतने नहीं वाली थी. बट एनीवेज, सो कॉल्ड
वो जेड पे
मार्टर.
सिक्योरिटी में मजे से बैठी है.
हाँ.
और लोग खून के आंसू बहा रहे हैं.
या या डूड, मतलब इतने आंसू आई थिंक बंगाल में द ग्राउंड वर्कर्स, आरएसएस बीजेपी वर्कर्स हुज entire families were murdered and raped and the houses burnt, I think उनके लिए इतना नहीं रोए होंगे लोग.
Yeah, I mean, I remember this incident when governor went to some BJP's, I mean, Bengal's government to party office, and BJP party workers surrounded him for to address the issue post-election violence, and he said, what do you guys think? Have you taken party for granted? Party खरीद लिए क्या तुम लोगों ने? I mean, he said that party खरीद लिए क्या तुम लोगों ने? And, I mean, look at the privileged attitude these fucks have. And, I mean, you can literally get raped and murdered and lose your family, and they will treat you like, I mean, तुमने क्या क्या उखाड़ लिया? And then there
हाँ.
is this woman, and oh man,
हम्म.
she's salute वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. And
या
what I think is, I mean, and again, it's all about putting Hindu women. It's all Shakti phenomenon all over again, because uh,
Yeah, it's a woman, and she has suddenly become a Shatrani, and she's suddenly become, as I said, Joan of Arc. It's like those, you remember those Kurdish PR operations where
oh
they,
yes, yes, yes.
deliberately highlight. Matlab, if you look at those pictures, even the IDF does this. If you look at those pictures, you'd think 80% of the Israeli combat forces on the battlefield are actually women, or 80% of the Kurdish forces are actually women, even though they are probably like not even 10% of the actual numbers.
Exactly, it's a PR thing, but at least still those women are soldiers. I mean, what has Nupur done? And then people are opposing me like, uh, at least she has done something. और मैं पूछता हूँ क्या? This is she said this. No, मैं भी बोलता हूँ यार. But you are anonymous. का मेरे को जेड पे सिक्योरिटी दे, मैं चेहरा दिखा के बोलूंगा. And he, I recently found out she's from London School of Economics. She has done LLM from London School of Economics, and
Where is she done LLB from?
LLB from Delhi University, LLM
ये
from London
काला
School of
कोट की
Economics.
ना कौम ही साला. I don't want to use.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there, man.
By the way, one interesting fact: London School of Economics was founded by Fabian Society, the same Fabian Society Nehru was a member of. Just interesting fact, throwing it like that.
Wonderful. CRT just, and I know you have received a ton of abuse from people कि तुम तो anon बन के कुछ भी बोलते हो, why don't you face this that. I know people will say all these things. All that being said, and people will just think that these people have nothing else to do but to criticize anyone and everyone the whole day long. See, the fact is, now none of us is coming here and saying that at a fundamental level we oppose what she said, right? Or that we are on a different side in that entire debate, that if abuse is being hurled towards Hindu deities or Hindu sentiments, then similar abuse, or it's not even abuse, to be quite frank, it was a statement of fact which was made in a particular tone, right? I personally don't even see it as abuse, to be honest, and people are right. It's a statement of fact. In fact, there are you can find videos of Salafi Wahhabi scholars from Saudi Arabia online, where they literally cite the same hadiths, the same sunnah, to claim that there was one very famous scholar. He said, when he was asked this question, that Sheikh, can you tell us that if we follow the path of Prophet Muhammad, what is the minimum age of marriage for a girl? He said there is no minimum age. Simple. That a girl can be married off by her father even if she's in the cradle. If she's a baby in the cradle, she can still be married off. There is an age of consummation, but as such, there is no age of marriage. And he cited this entire Aisha wala example, and nothing was ever done to him. In fact, like that is the kind of guy who would give a fatwa on on your head or my head. He's not the kind of guy who would receive a fatwa, right? So on the merits of the issue, it's I'm not at all saying that what she said was wrong or that she's incorrect, right? But the problem lies in the fact that you are creating such a big martyr out of this individual, right? And by this stream of Sangi Raita thought, which is hell bent on promoting this idea that everything which is conservative, which is traditional, which is which demands modesty of women and traditional gender divisions, is Abrahamic, and we are Hindus, so we are the most liberal people on the planet, right? Because it's a slippery slope, right? And unfortunately, they use examples like this because they come from that sort of mentality. That is my problem at the end of the day, if you look at the wider picture. But in this particular example, of course, fundamentally, I am also on the same page as her, right? But the problem is that the Raitas, they oppose Islam not because it necessarily they see it as a civilizational threat. They see it as a threat to their debauchery, right? And that
Yes.
is my main problem.
See, uh, there is a threat they feel that if we allow censorship, uh, I will I will lose my options of consumption, content consumption. Like if censorship happens, maybe tomorrow I will not be able to watch this kind of channel or access that kind of website, and uh, uh, or maybe I won't be able to have this kind of entertainment or that kind of entertainment. So many of the anti-censorship people are not anti-censorship because they are socially or politically concerned. They are anti-censorship because they're concerned about their personal entertainment and content consumption. Like कल को मेरा फोन कट जाएगा यार, like these are
हाँ.
the thoughts in their mind.
हाँ, आज आज जियो ने पॉन एक्सेस बंद किया है, कल को क्या पता है ये लोग वीपीएन भी ट्रैक करने लग गए किसी तरह, तो सारा मेरा वो मिल्फ और पता नहीं क्या क्या फेटिश वो सब गवर्नमेंट बैन ना कर दे, और असली हिंदुत्व तो जाग ही नहीं पाएगा यार उसके बिना. यू नो
Yeah,
दिस इज देयर मेंटालिटी. वो कामा सूत्रा के जितने भी वो पार्ट हैं, वो
yeah,
how will the Hindus get to know about their genuine history? The ancient sages who wrote that magnificent poetry in the Kama Sutra, that is their Hindutva, by the way. That is, their understanding of a great achievement of our civilization, right? And I'm not going into saying ki, just be, you should be a complete prude or any. I'm not saying anything like that, right?
Yes.
But let's be honest, guys, that was one small segment in a small segment of a segment of people, in a very small segment of our history. Most of our history, our people have been quite orthodox and have been quite clear about traditional gender roles, right? I don't think there is any denying that.
Yes, and I mean, for about when Nupur actually gave her statement, and Middle Eastern countries reacted to that statement. In between that action and reaction, there was about 10 days gap. I, if I'm not wrong, approximately there was a 10 days gap between action and reaction, and within 10 days. What happened, that's something worth investigating. It has lessons to be learned for all, because Islamic activists of India worked very hard to take this message that someone is doing this and get it to their Gulf benefactors or patrons. I think patrons would be a better word. They are the benefactors, and Gulf states are the patrons. To take this, that Nupur is saying this and this, and you must react against it. And then the reaction started flowing. So somebody has worked hard to get this message out to the patrons, and that work is something we lack. There
Yeah,
might be potential benefactors that we can have. They might be wealthy, they might be powerful, but nobody is trying to reach out to them. I think so. That one thing that many people complain that nobody donates for Hindus, nobody works for Hindus. See, there are rich Hindu people who actually would be willing to donate for Hindu causes, but
yeah,
they need to see uh, people who are actually honestly working for Hindu cause, and they have a legitimate plan to work for Hindu cause. If they see somebody
absolutely.
doing that, uh, doing the actual footwork, then they will be willing to donate something,
Right,
because
right.
fraud एनजीओs तो बहुत सारे हैं, and that's why
Yeah,
nobody wants to give anything for Hindu cause, because
you
कोई
know,
ना कोई आ
uh,
जाता है कि भाई मंदिर के चंदा के लिए आप दे दो,
हाँ,
और सबको लगता है कि
हाँ,
फर्जी आदमी. तो there's a bad thing that nobody is willing to pull out money from its pocket, because everyone looks like a pickpocket, and that's why
exactly,
and that's why
exactly.
everyone one has tightened his pocket.
And CRT, to be quite honest, in a country like India, हमने कितनी ही बार ऐसे फ्रॉड्स देखे, मतलब आई कैन कंप्लीटली अंडरस्टैंड व्हाई पीपल वांट टू बी वैरी, राइट? एक तो
Yes.
ठीक है, ठीक है, गवर्नमेंट के सामने रेगुलेशंस होंगे या जो भी आपके बेयर मिनिमम डिस्क्लोजर के रिक्वायरमेंट्स होंगे कि आप अपने अकाउंट्स, इन दिस मेनी मंथ्स यू हैव टू डू एन ऑडिट और दिस एंड दैट, लेकिन पब्लिक के सामने, आपके डोनर्स के सामने, व्हाट आर द ऑडिटिंग रिक्वायरमेंट्स? और कितने डोनर्स इतनी मेहनत करेंगे कि जाके टू चेक द बुक्स कि कहाँ पे मनी स्पेंड हो रहा है, कहाँ नहीं हो रहा है? And not even just talking about Indian NGOs and Indian charities, but if you just look at for example, international aid agencies or Western ones, उनके ऐसे हाल हैं कि if you look at the statistics which you get, right, very
Hmm.
very ये Red Cross, there is a, it's a French name, Doctors Without Borders, I don't know how to
Yes.
pronounce this properly, Médecins Sans Frontières, something like that. And there are many others in the US also. Some of them I think Christian, some of them are non-Christian, but in general you will see कि अगर if $1 or let's say $10 is going in donation, out of $10, $4-5 straight away is being spent on administrative expenses. ठीक है, फिर उसमें से कुछ $1.5-2 एग्जीक्यूटिव के बोनसेस में चले जाएगा. ठीक है, फिर $1-1.5 यहाँ कहीं ओपनिंग न्यू ब्रांचेस और एक्सपेंशन और रिसर्च और पता नहीं किस किस खर्चे में लग जाएगा. और बाद में जाके आपका out of those $10, maybe 15 or 20% will actually end up, going to the intended beneficiaries, right? This is the Western one. So you can imagine how bad it is here in India, right? क्योंकि इंडिया में एक तो लाइक आई एम, एंड अगेन आई डोंट वांट पीपल टू इंटरप्रेट कि मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि ये तो वेस्ट में हाल है तो इंडिया में क्या. नेचुरली in a developing country जहाँ पे avenues to make money, employment opportunity, ये सब की और भी ज़्यादा दिक्कत हैं, and it is generally easier to get away with things like this. The legal system is not generally not very strong. In a country like ours, you can very well imagine, चाहे कि कोई आपसे पैसा मांग रहा हो मेडिकल इश्यूज के ऊपर, कोई पैसा मांग रहा हो हिंदुत्व के ऊपर, कोई मांग रहा हो पॉलिटिकल उसके ऊपर, और एनी अदर रीजन, right? There is a very, very, very good chance that only a very small percentage of the money you pay will actually go for that intended cause, and the rest of all will be used up in all sorts of vague expenses on the books, right? And I think people, maybe they have not seen the books, maybe they have not seen the statistics, but fundamentally people realize this, and that is why they are so wary. And that is why these kind of people who become influential from a particular political ideology, let's say, या फिर someone who is a particular religious sect guru or leader, someone who is respected from that point of view, right? His or her words carry a lot of weight in influencing people, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's why BJP, because they have so many such influencers, such leaders, right? क्योंकि ऐसे काफी लोग होते हैं जिनको लेजिटिमेटली लगता है कि हाँ यार, हमारे शिवराज सिंह जी हैं, योगी जी हैं, नितिन गडकरी जी, कोई भी लीडर हो या कोई इन्फ्लुएंसर हो, राइट, पार्टी का, कि ये अगर बोल रहे हैं कि इस चैरिटेबल पर्पस के लिए जा रहा है तो हाँ शायद सही में जाएगा ही. एंड बीजेपी इज एबल टू मोनोपोलाइज दीज इश्यूज, राइट? वेदर इट बी द राम मंदिर के पैसे जाएगा तो किसके पास जाएगा? आरएसएस एफिलिएटेड उसके पास जाएगा, वरना इट्स अ स्कैम, right? Only legit one is RSS. This is how people will naturally come to think about it, right?
And ironically, fact is,
Yeah.
there was some allegations of corruption in Ram Mandir fund collection, and in the allotment of land and its use. Uh, there was a Parashar guy on Twitter who was posting about it, but it was rapidly suppressed. There was an issue regarding. In fact, it's these people who turn out to be the most corrupt.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like I obviously cannot, factually make 100% assertion that I know for sure that this corruption has happened in this particular thing. But man, like, think about it logically. It's the world's biggest political party. Essentially, it is spending, even on small state elections, they end up spending hundreds, if not, I think, thousands of crores per, like, assembly elections, right? And even, elections at all levels, right? Panchayat, municipal, मतलब इतना सारा पैसा, अगर सिर्फ आपको अगर लग रहा है कि पार्टी के लेजिटिमेट सोर्सेस से आ रहा है, तो then I think you are being very naive, right? It is,
Yes,
there is money being cut from donations, from schemes, from all sorts of sources, right? And that is essentially how every political party operates, right? It's not just the BJP, but the BJP probably does a more organized job of it.
yes, that is surely an issue. Uh, what I was saying is that one thing is there are actual hard-working leftists who dedicate their life for the cause and they work very selflessly and very hard for the cause. And if people think while left, despite being small in small electorally, they are insignificant on national level, electorally speaking, and numerical support is again insignificant. Despite that, they have so much high influence. It's because even if they have one last man that one last man is fighting to best of his availability, best of his capacity. Uh, People usually laugh a lot on these. There's this stereotype. Yeah, JNU झोला छाप वाले क्या करते हैं? But many of those झोला छाps actually work hard. It would be hard. Yes, you can call them degenerate, or of course, you can morally and politically disagree with them, but it's truth that they work very hard for their cause, and it shows its effect. And that thing is not going to be acknowledged. They are not going to acknowledge one single good thing about their enemy. Because I think they have no spirit of sportsmanship. I mean, political sportsmanship. That's why they can't appreciate something their enemy is doing good. So
I think CRT, yeah, like what you mentioned about political sportsmanship, that kind of attitude that okay, like you when you go to if you watch these interviews or live debates on television from 70s or let's say 80s of US presidential candidates, you will see a very genuinely warm attitude towards each other, राइट ऑब्वियसली दे हैव वेरी डिफरेंट पॉलिटिकल ओपिनियंस, लेकिन मतलब ऐसे होगा कि ठीक है दे इफ दे डिसएग्री तो इट विल बी कंप्लीटली बेस्ड ऑन फैक्ट्स, या फिर रेटरिक भी होगा तो रेटरिक होगा लेकिन ठीक है विशियस रेटरिक नहीं होगा, पर्सनल अटैक्स बहुत कम होंगे, डिबेट खत्म होने के बाद दोनों मतलब दे विल शेक हैंड या फिर वार्मली स्माइल एंड कॉम्प्लीमेंट समथिंग अबाउट द अदर पर्सन। ऐसी चीजें वहां पे भी अब धीरे धीरे करके मतलब खत्म हो गई हैं ऑब्वियसली। वंस यू हैव द पॉलिटिकल डिवाइड becoming more and more extreme, right? You see that Overton window going further on both ends, further right and further left, right? So it becomes impossible because at the end of the day आपने ऐसी situation पैदा कर दी है कि you have essentially told the electorate, you have told your base कि the other side is made up of pedophile monsters, psychopaths, serial killers who will sell your children's kidneys to China for the slightest profit। ठीक है, दोनों साइड ने मतलब एक दूसरे को ऐसे पेंट कर दिया, तो ऐसी सिचुएशन में ऑब्वियसली यू कांट बी जेंटलमैनली विद द अदर साइड। ठीक है, एंड आई थिंक काफी एक्सटेंट तक ये चीज इंडिया में भी इट्स एसेंशियली द सेम थिंग। इंडिया में तो पहले भी मतलब उस तरीके के एटिकेट शायद उतने एस्टैब्लिश थे भी नहीं, बट इन जनरल थोड़ी बहुत that presence of basic courtesy, right? And if you look at many of these old maybe interviews or debates, ये एक तो ये भी चीज थी कि इतने सारे टीवी चैनल्स नहीं थे, इतना कंपटीशन नहीं था, राइट? मेनली क्या था, आई थिंक स्टार्टिंग में तो मेनली दूरदर्शन ही हुआ करता था, फिर धीरे धीरे करके आपका ये स्टार न्यूज, आज तक, ये सब धीरे धीरे करके है। बट जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आप वो वाला पीरियड ले लो, लेट 90s मे बी इवन टिल अर्ली 2000s, तो अगर आप देखोगे कि जैसे अटल जी का कोई इंटरव्यू हो रहा है, या फिर दूसरी साइड से कांग्रेस से किसी सीनियर लीडर का, या फिर किसी रीजनल ये देवे गौड़ा और someone I don't know, like from whoever from that era, right? The way they will speak, the and in fact in all languages, Hindi I particularly mentioned क्योंकि हिंदी में एक वैसे तरीके की हिंदी भी होती है ना जो मतलब which the जो standard हिंदी is supposed to be a very courteous language. I'm not talking
Yes,
about
yes.
Hindi dialects, but जो standard हिंदी हमें सिखाई जाती है, and I'm not talking about उर्दू also कि लोग सोचेंगे ये तो तहजीब तो उसकी बात नहीं, मैं उसकी बात भी नहीं कर रहा हूँ. बट एनसीईआरटी में और जो हिंदी का फॉर्मल रजिस्टर हमें इंडिया में सिखाया जाता है, राइट, उसका डी फैक्टो स्टैंडर्ड वे टू रिफर टू समवन, आप करिए, आप कीजिए, आप कहाँ से आए हैं, it's language like that which is that's the standardized Hindi which is taught to you, which is, I just want to make an observation. Many times you will notice that the people who have learned Hindi from as a second or third language, right, the way they speak Hindi is actually much more polite, right, sounding many times, because they don't know of any other way of speaking Hindi. so 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 it's not necessarily that they're trying to be polite, but the formal Hindi which is taught is very polite, and that is the
Yes.
sort of Hindi which we saw a lot on Doordarshan and these official channels. And apart from that also, there was a general tendency amongst news channels and politicians also that we don't need to be 100% cutthroat ki ye to matlab शैतान का बच्चा है जो ऑपोजिशन वाला है, ये मतलब ये तो पूरे देश को नर्क में डुबाएगा, मतलब it did not have to be that brutal, right? Now it's a different case. You are arguing against 20 other panelists on Republic TV, so what can you do?
Yeah, people, I mean, of Bhadralok and Sambhrant Savarna Samaj find like somebody like Sambit Patra very problematic. Thing is, जो थिएटर की फ्रंट रो की तालीमार ऑडियंस है उसके लिए संबित पात्रा सुपरस्टार एंड दे लव संबित पात्रा फॉर स्पीकिंग द वे ही स्पीक्स. they they don't care about facts and logic. They care about कि डायलॉग ऐसा हो कि सीटी बजे. एंड संबित पात्रा एक्चुअली डिलीवर्स दैट. Arnab Goswami actually delivers that.
Exactly. Even to an extent, someone like Nupur, why was she such a popular spokesperson? Partly it was because of that, because she, if anyone would dare to challenge her, she would suddenly switch to that sort of dialogue delivery, right, which made it look
Yes,
like a Big Boss episode,
even though
and
she
that is what the audience wants.
even though she's supposed to be better than that. I mean, she's a lawyer and she has studied in DU and LSE, and she's supposed to be an intellectual elite, but she knows her audience and her target audience works just like that. So she will play that role, and it's, this is not unique to Indian right-wing politicians. Uh, this अक्खड़ देसी वाली जो पर्सनैलिटी है, ये राइट विंग इन्फ्लुएंसर्स जबरदस्ती अडॉप्ट करते हैं टू रेजोनेट विद देयर ऑडियंस. ट्रम्प आल्सो वर्क्स ऑन दिस. ट्रम्प इज एन एलीट, but the way he speaks appeals to the American local masses. And George Bush, to a degree, adopted this uh, uh, desi Americana personality to a local working class guy who isn't like the cultural elite, despite the fact that Bush comes from a long line of elite family. He will behave like one of the masses because it's a
Yeah,
formula
yeah.
that has time and again worked.
Right, right. Basically, you speak in a way. Even Trump did it even better than him, I think. You
Yes.
speak in a way that seems like you don't give a shit what the other person thinks, right? You speak in a way as if you really are speaking, with your buddies after work during your
Yes.
cigarette break, or you're just like those truckers in the Midwest
Yes.
who are going around chugging Budweiser and cursing the government and taxes and all that, right? So because that is what their core grassroots audience wants, right? Here the core grassroots audience, I guess, wants something a little different, that masala Big Boss type of thing. But anyway, not to spend too much time on this CRT, do you mind if we just quickly touch upon the entire Agnipath thing, because I think that's been a bit of a
Yes,
burning issue. Yeah,
yes, there is a,
please.
by the way, very good comment in in chat. Fractor Indica, your comment about NGOs isn't fully true. If you donate 100 rupees to Agniveer, 110 Yajnapaths will be given to Adivasis and 10 Kadhai yajnas will be had.
It's like the quick, if you are a true Savarn nationalist, then you should donate to Agniveer, because they will create they will increase the supply of Savarnas in our country the fastest. सबको जनेऊ
Yes,
बांट बांट के इतने सवर्ण हो जाएंगे कि मतलब कंट्री 90% सवर्ण बन जाएगी.
yes. Nevar, Sanjeev never turned out to be the most visionary person on the planet. Nobody expected when Nevar said that he will martialize the entire country. People thought he's a joke, but look today, his scheme has become adopted by the army. Sanjeev Nevar is the most revolutionary man of
He's
21st century. Change my mind.
you know yeah, I think what Modi and Kejriwal and Mamta and Amit Shah and all these people think today, I think Newar sir has already thought 5 years back. So he's a man ahead of his era.
One one
He's a
Nepali man running entire India. The true master
he's
race.
yeah, I think he's ahead of the reptilians and the Illuminati also, and the
We,
the ones whose
we
names shall
have
not be taken.
we have to address the Nepali question or Nevari question, whatever we can call it.
Yeah, but with the entire Agniveer thing, so I'll just give a gist of it. CRT, please tell me if I go wrong somewhere. I'll just give a very very basic gist of it. So from what I have understood, right, the motivation here seems to be to, okay, what they've officially put out is obviously centered around ki we want to give more opportunities to the youth, and we want to reduce the overall age, create a young force and all that. Obviously, I mean, that is a part of it, to reduce the age and make it less top heavy, because our army is actually very top heavy, especially amongst the officers, but I think to an extent amongst the non officer classes as well. But the biggest thing, which I think they have briefly mentioned in their press releases, but it's not been highlighted a lot, right? क्योंकि बात end में पैसों पे ही आती है, right?
Yes,
And in fact, this is somewhere where I don't know. Like, I do agree to an extent, because the thing is that if you look at the budgets of, let's say, India, and any comparative, let's say you compare India's defense budget with Russia's, China's, our one of our maybe our biggest nemesis, or like the country we are most likely to have a conflict with, Pakistan. If you compare it to even with the UK, France, these countries, generally what tends to happen is that a bulk of your defense budget is spent on a few things, like acquiring new weaponry, okay, R&D, training, and of course salaries and pensions also. Something has to be spent, right? लेकिन जो salaries और pensions वाला part है, वो it is not supposed to be the number one expense, or it is not supposed to be कि मतलब 20% पैसा नए नए weapons पे जा रहा है, और 60% पैसा pensions और उस पे जा रहा है. That is generally not how it's supposed to be. In India, it's the opposite, right? If you compare to any other major country's defense budget, any serious country in the sense which can be seriously be expected to be preparing for a conflict or fight a conflict at any point of time, their budgets are generally geared towards either weapons acquisition or training or R&D. Obviously, salaries are a huge part of it, but generally not more than, I guess, maybe 20%, 25%, something like that, right? Our problem is, I don't know the exact figure. I shared the figure on Twitter. I'll maybe retweet it or reframe the tweet. The problem in India is, in सब countries के comparison में, even पाकिस्तान के comparison में, हमारा इतना ज़्यादा lopsided है कि पेंशन और सैलरीज पे वी आर लिटरली ओवर स्पेंडिंग सो मच मनी, जितने पैसे में मतलब इतना जो रफाल पे बवाल मचा है, रफाल के मतलब 20 times the number of squadrons you can probably buy over a 5-10 year period. That much amount of excess money is being spent on all these lifetime pensions and everything. So people who are not very well aware of how pensions operate in the army. Now the thing is that generally किसी भी सर्विस में एक minimum number of years होते हैं which you have to serve to be eligible for pension in that service, right? आर्मी में ये होता है कि आर्मी में जो आपको पेंशन मिलती है, रफली स्पीकिंग, मैं काफी मतलब बिल्कुल आम आदमी के उसमें शब्दों में बात कर रहा हूँ, इज रफली इक्विवेलेंट टू योर लास्ट ड्रॉन सैलरी, रफली इक्विवेलेंट टू हाफ ऑफ इट, ऑफ योर लास्ट ड्रॉन, ठीक है? और वो लास्ट ड्रॉन सैलरी का हाफ जो होता है, जैसे ऐसे करके उस लेवल की बेसिक पे वगैरह पे कमीशंस के साथ इंक्रीज होती है, वैसे वैसे करके उस पेंशन में भी इट कीप्स ऑन ट्रैकिंग दैट, राइट? कि ऐसा नहीं कि मतलब आपने जैसे अगर आपने कर्नल 2022 में रिटायर किया और आपकी पेंशन आ रही है मतलब लेट्स से अराउंड 50,000 पर मंथ, ऐसा नहीं है कि मतलब 10 साल बाद भी आपकी 50,000 ही होगी, ऑब्वियसली, राइट? देयर इज सम ट्रैकिंग विद these increments in base pay or maybe DA. I'm not sure of the exact mechanisms, but to an extent it also keeps on tracking inflation. ठीक है? तो वो पेंशन भी बढ़ती रहती है, आपके लाइफ टाइम आपको एक तो पेंशन मिलेगी, और वो पेंशन एक पर्टिकुलर स्पीड से बढ़ती रहेगी ताकि इन्फ्लेशन आपको इतना ज्यादा पिंच ना करे, राइट? तो ये एक बजट पे बहुत बड़ा ड्रेन हो जाता है. And the thing is, for officers, there is a minimum years of service, and for soldiers as well. Now, the soldier class, the non-officer class, their minimum years of service, because the thing is, soldiers, जो सिपाही होता है, by soldier I mean OR plus NCO plus JCO, that class of individuals is supposed to enter the armed forces at a very young age. I think they generally get enrolled by the time they are 18, 19, 20, something like that. And they retire quite early, right? Just your officers, the ones with the permanent commission, they are retiring, generally well into their 50s, right? Mostly, I think well into their 50s. But these soldiers are retiring almost, I think, if I'm not wrong, by the time they're 40 or they're in their late 30s or early 40s. So almost quite a bit earlier than the officers, right? And the number of years they need to serve to be eligible for that lifetime pension for the soldiers, the non-officer class, is also much less, is substantially less compared to the officer class. तो प्रॉब्लम ये हो जाती है कि आप ये लाखों जो सिपाही हैं, when they retire after serving this limited amount of time, right, they get to enjoy the pension till the time they die, right? Now अब आप सोचो, कोई आदमी is 41, let's say, and he retires, ठीक है? और आजकल की लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसीज के हिसाब से वो मतलब 70 साल तो जिएगा, राइट? तो नेक्स्ट 30 years तक गवर्नमेंट पे उसके, और बाय द टाइम ही रिटायर्स, हिज ग्रोस और वट एवर थिंग विल बी इजिली अबव 60,000. दैट मच आई कैन अश्योर यू. 60,000, तो आप 30,000 पर मंथ एक बंदे को दे रहे हो, राइट? एंड नॉट जस्ट दैट. Now, another thing with the armed forces, I don't know how it works for the other services, is that after that beneficiary dies, his wife also receives a part of the pension. So मैंने जैसे बताया था कि आपकी जो लास्ट ड्रॉन सैलरी होती है उसका हाफ आपको रफली मिलता है, और एंड व्हेन यू डाई, योर वाइफ आल्सो कीप्स ऑन गेटिंग हाफ ऑफ द हाफ, राइट? तो मतलब बेसिकली आपके लास्ट ड्रॉन का हाफ आपको मिलेगा, और आपके हाफ का हाफ हो जाएगा जब आप मरोगे और आपकी जो विधवा जो लेडी है, ठीक है? एंड द पेंशन फाइनली ओनली एंड्स व्हेन बोथ दैट इंडिविजुअल एंड हिज स्पाउस, बोथ ऑफ देम आर डेड. So you are looking at almost probably 30 to 40 years for a soldier the government has to support with these pensions, right? And it is because, and officers में शायद कुछ कम साल होगा, but officers के भी मतलब pension का burden बहुत है, officers, soldiers, दोनों classes का. Officers में to some extent they have been able to control this through short service commission, ठीक है, काफी लोगों को शॉर्ट सर्विस कमीशन में लिया जाता है, एंड इफ दे डोंट गेट द नेसेसरी एक्सटेंशंस, इफ दे डोंट सर्व दैट मिनिमम पीरियड, तो दे आर नॉट पेंशन eligible obviously. The government saves up, ends up saving the money there. Now they are basically essentially trying that same thing for the soldiers, but in a even more radical way, right? More radical because ये तो सिर्फ 4 साल का है, right? तो 4 साल में अगर now I think in the initial batch I think they want to take around 46,000 or something. Eventually they'll increase it to almost I think 59-60,000. So basically what is going to happen is that after 4 years only 25% will be retained. So only 25% of these individuals who enrolled as Agniveers will go on to serve the necessary amount of time to be eligible for lifetime pension, and also for to be eligible for that lifetime health insurance, army health cover, right? तो ये दोनों बड़े एक्सपेंस आपने बहुत रिड्यूस कर दिया अग्निवीर स्कीम के साथ. सो दिस इज द बिगेस्ट बेनिफिट. मतलब I have not made the calculations. Maybe I'll do some rough calculations and share with you guys. But it will save an immense amount of money. अगर पैसे बचाने की अगर आप सिर्फ उस एंगल से देखो तो हाँ, मतलब it is actually a master stroke. No sarcasm. So yeah.
Okay, there is that angle about saving the expenses, but there is another expense that is being alleged in other circles, that is about ending the caste or ethnicity based regiments. And the people are, I mean, this accusation is out there too, that there is a fear of separatism rising out of these ranks, and in order to uh, demilitarize or demobilize these people who could be potential separatists or problematic to the regime, that they have decided to introduce this Agni scheme so that they could end these regiments on that way. So, is that possible, or or I mean, is this something that's purely speculative?
So CRT, matlab, honestly, now the thing is, I don't know. I cannot specifically point you to because I don't know if they have publicly released the entire notification as of now, या फिर एक बस शॉर्ट प्रेस रिलीज आई है. जब एक्चुअल जो नोटिफिकेशन आएगा रिक्रूटमेंट का, देन आई थिंक विल बी एबल टू कमेंट बेटर. इफ इट इज ऑलरेडी आउट, प्लीज समवन, if you can share the link, that will be great. But if you look at the steps that this government has taken with regard to the armed forces, right? एक तो first of all they started with giving a green light to an OBC quota in Sainik schools, right? For anyone here who has a little bit of an idea about defense forces preparation, who comes from a defense family or something like that, you will know that Sainik schools are one of the biggest sources of especially for the officer rank officer rank, raw pool of young men who are inducted, right? And सैनिक स्कूल्स में ऑब्वियसली अगर आप कितना भी छोटा परसेंटेज कोटा ले आओ अगर किसी भी पर्टिकुलर कास्ट या कैटेगरी के लिए, इवेंचुअली कुछ ना कुछ आगे जाके उसका अफेक्ट पड़ेगा इन द डेमोग्राफिक कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ द ऑफिसर कोर ऑफ द आर्मी एंड द आर्म्ड फोर्सेस ओवरऑल, राइट? और इस गवर्नमेंट की इन जनरल कास्ट मेंटालिटी, मतलब कास्टिस्ट मेंटालिटी देख के, कास्टिस्ट अगेंस्ट सवर्णस एंड अगेंस्ट फॉरवर्ड कास्ट, आई पर्सनली, दिस इज एन ओपिनियन, मैं किसी को कोई, मैं आपको एग्जैक्ट अभी वो नहीं दे सकता हूँ कि इसके ऊपर ये फैक्ट्स हैं, ये हमें बाद में क्लैरिटी आएगी. बट आई सस्पेक्ट दैट दिस also has had a role to play in this decision being made, because with any new scheme, any new recruitment initiative, there is a new, obviously there's going to be a new framing of rules, right? So there is now going to be more scope to include very, very, in a very clandestine manner, some clause or some convoluted aspect of the recruitment process which will disfavor forward castes, general category people, and give more easier, which will give easier entry to scheduled castes or OBCs and these other reserved people coming from reserved category background. अब इसकी श्योरिटी नहीं है कि ये कैसे होगा, but there are many ways to do it, right? एक बेसिक तरीका तो मैं आपको मतलब अभी जस्ट ऑफ द टॉप ऑफ माय हेड आई कैन टेल यू, राइट? तो जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल जो रेजिमेंटल रिक्रूटमेंट्स होते हैं, राइट, दे हैव सर्टन रेजिमेंटल सेंटर्स. सो फॉर एग्जांपल आई कम फ्रॉम द गढ़वाल रीजन, which
Okay.
has Garhwal Rifles as the primary representative in the infantry, which is a light infantry regiment. Similarly, Kumaon has a Kumaon regiment. तो जो गढ़वाल राइफल्स हैं, कुमाऊं रेजिमेंट का अगर मैं एग्जांपल दे दूं, तो ये दोनों अपने दोनों स्पेसिफिक रीजन्स के रेजिमेंटल सेंटर से रिक्रूट करते हैं. गढ़वाल राइफल्स का है लैंसडाउन, विच इज इन द पौड़ी गढ़वाल डिस्ट्रिक्ट, एंड इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग कुमाऊं इज इन रानीखेत. तो जब आपका रेजिमेंटल सेंटर वहां पे होता है, तो ऑब्वियसली एक बल्क ऑफ द रिक्रूट्स हु विल अपीयर फॉर भर्ती are going to be from those specific communities who live there, right? अब मेरे को एग्जैक्ट ये नहीं पता है कि रिक्रूटमेंट प्रोसेस में कि कितना स्ट्रिक्ट ये ऐसे कोई क्राइटेरिया होता है कि आपको स्पेसिफिकली इस कास्ट या इस एथनिसिटी से होना ही होना है. बिकॉज आई हैव ऑल्सो हर्ड ऑफ केसेस दैट इन गढ़वाल रेजिमेंट or for example in any other, for example JNK rifles, or in any other regiment, soldiers from other communities are also coming from distant areas and enrolling. That might also be happening, but generally अगर at least locally आपका regimental center हो तो एक advantage मिलती है उस community को, right? बट अगर जैसे अग्निवीर में उन्होंने सिंपली ये कर दिया कि अग्निवीर स्कीम की जो रिक्रूटमेंट एंट्री होंगी उसके लिए हमारे जो रिक्रूटमेंट सेंटर्स होंगे उनका ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल स्ट्रक्चर ही बिल्कुल कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट होगा. सिर्फ वो स्टेप लेने से ही आपका ये पूरा डेमोग्राफिक गेम ऑन हो जाएगा. मतलब बेसिकली टू ट्रांसफॉर्म द डेमोग्राफिक्स ऑफ द आर्मी विच आर करंटली प्रेजेंट, राइट? सपोज आपने कह दिया कि गढ़वाल राइफल्स के जो अग्निवीर रैंक वाले हैं, अग्निवीर रैंक वालों का हम सिर्फ गढ़वाल में बेस नहीं रखेंगे, अग्निवीर रैंक वालों का हम लोग एक बेस यूपी में कर देंगे, एक पंजाब में कर देंगे, एक साउथ में कर देंगे और एक कहीं बंगाल में कर देंगे. तो ऑब्वियसली भाई वही चीज करने से एक आप पहले रिक्रूटमेंट जो कर रहे थे वो उस एरिया से कर रहे थे जहां पे पॉपुलेशन ही ऑब्वियसली 60-70% फॉरवर्ड कास्ट है. अब आप रिक्रूटमेंट उन एरिया से कर रहे हो जहां पे 10% है, 20% है, 15% है. तो ऑल ऑफ अ सडन दैट रेजिमेंट इटसेल्फ माइट बिकम, लेट्स से फ्रॉम 70-80% फॉरवर्ड कास्ट टू 40-50% फॉरवर्ड कास्ट, just because of this one master stroke, right? So, and there can be so many other ways that you can tweak the recruitment system, and in a very clandestine and secretive manner you can start reducing the number of forward casts. And given the sick mentality which this party has, I am quite scared, I am quite apprehensive that is exactly what is going to happen. Over to you, CRT.
If they are going to reduce some people from army personnel, there is a good news and there is a bad news. Uh, Bad news, of course, you have already said we are going to be demilitarized and demobilized. That's a problem. But good news is, uh, if tomorrow war comes, I'm glad me or my people are, people from my family are not going to be on the front lines, especially against China, because I don't think we deserve to fight for, Tibetan or for some Tibetan or what are they called? Buddhist, I mean, क्या नाम है उस जगह का? Arunachal, yes, that Arunachal and Ladakhi people. I just don't see a logic in for fighting for that ground.
See, CRT, I might probably disagree with you a little bit here. Like, I understand your apprehension. Obviously, like, you don't want people from your community to be used as cannon fodder for aimless geopolitical 56 inch bazi. But to be quite honest, uh, the way that the military service, and like I think the way that our military history has really played out, generally there is, I don't think there is a very abnormally high chance of dying for a military recruit, because generally speaking our the conflicts we tend to have are very short term, and they occur on terrain in which mass infantry combat or mass casualty, mass formation combat is not very easy, it's not very smooth, right?
Hmm.
लाइक जैसे ये जो अरुणाचल और लद्दाख वगैरह टेरेन है, वहां पे
Hmm.
मतलब जैसे सोवियत यूनियन और जर्मनी, नाजी जर्मनी का था, कि वहां पे मतलब इतने रोलिंग प्लेन्स थे कि लिटरली formations of like 50,000 80,000 men are getting obliterated in like a week or something. तो वैसे टाइप का बैटल, वो सिनेरियो यहाँ पे एक तो काफी हद तक पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. And obviously India being a democratic country, तो मतलब obviously, and RSS BJP people being the kind of individuals they are, एक वो appetite भी नहीं है मतलब for any real conflict. तो मतलब वो शोबाजी रिपब्लिक टीवी पे कि पीओके का ये कर देंगे, काबुल में ये कर देंगे, वो सब ही होगा. अजीत डोवाल, जेम्स बॉन्ड, ये सब आई
See,
डोंट थिंक देयर इज टू मच ऑफ नीड टू. या प्लीज गो अहेड.
yes, that's a good point. That's a good counterpoint. I mean, but I just feel this apprehension because recently there has been too much unreasonably anti-China propaganda everywhere broadcasted from all directions, and even Congress, which is usually considered a party of peace and pacifism, has been attacking Modi government for not being tough enough on China. They are not attacking Modi government for being aggressive, which they are attacking. So there is a bipartisan agreement on that, which uh, uh, which I find very suspicious, and a
Yeah,
lot I've
definitely.
been
That's an interesting angle. That's an interesting angle. Yeah.
I've been noticing a lot of American funded
Yeah.
uh,
Because
programming,
CRT, sorry,
anti-China
just
programming in India.
yeah, yeah, because I just want to mention that, like, what you said, it's a very interesting angle, especially because if you think about it, if the Americans would like, anyone to fight China, and any foot soldiers cannon to be cannon fodder, in the first line, they'd probably choose us, right? And not any Western soldiers. मतलब पहले वो मार्टरडम और वीर गति की तरफ अपने इंडिया जैसे एलाइज को, सो कॉल्ड एलाइज को ही भेजेंगे. एलाइज स्लैश वैसल स्टेट्स, obviously they would send their troops in, of where chances of being a casualty are high, at the very end. So yeah.
Exactly. Even Japs and Koreans and Taiwanese are not going to put any fight. So all eyes are on us. That when it comes to geopolitics, everyone wants India to be its mad dog in the fight. And I see Gaurav Arya appearing on US neocon platforms. Uh, and there have been allegations about Gaurav Arya working on American film. And same with,
Does he appear on any American channels or any
you
like
have heard of
major
that?
websites?
You have heard of that YouTube channel, uh, China Uncensored?
China,
So,
yeah, yeah. I've watched a few of their videos also. In fact, I think
yeah,
beach mein.
Gaurav Arya has an interview on that, and you know how rapidly anti-China channel
Oh yeah,
China
yeah. That
censored.
that 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 is a proper neoliberal, State Department funded channel, for sure.
Yeah,
मतलब वो रशिया टुडे से भी ज्यादा ऑब्वियस है.
yeah, it's funded by when I checked, it's funded by uh, New Tang Dynasty. There's a cult in China, a sort of a neo-Buddhist and neo-Confucian mixture cult. It's called Falun Gong,
Yeah,
and
Falun
these
Gong, right, right,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. Who were
and
claiming
these
all these
people,
atrocities and stuff, right?
yes,
कि
they
हमारा किडनी विडनी
manufactured
बेच
this.
दिया and
Yeah, that CCP engages in
see, I
organ
don't know if
cell.
it happened or not, but I'm just saying it out loud.
Yeah,
It is
so
not
so
our issue. It is not
yeah,
our
so
problem.
yeah,
Same
so,
thing with
so
Tibet, not our problem.
there have been clear evidences that once Falun Gong was persecuted by CCP and its followers ran away and settled in US and Western countries, the State Department colluded with this cult and used it to uh, establish a kind of anti-establishment faction within China, and this cult funds China Uncensored, which used to operate from Hong Kong back in the day. Now I don't know what's the base of the operation of this media group is these days. But back in the day, it was based in Hong Kong, and Falun Gong cult was funding this channel.
Right, right. And I think with any kind of dissident movement in China, I think the moment you mention that you are willing to protest or oppose the Communist Party, the moment you mention that, you automatically have CIA backing, you automatically have US State Department backing. Same thing we saw in Hong Kong. We've been seeing it in Tibet. We've been seeing it with these, two China people. The Taiwan is a separate whatever, basically Taiwan, full independence for Taiwan type of people who don't want that one China thing to go ahead. So I think, dude, like, again, as Indians, we need to be very, very, very careful, right? We need to only make sure that when it is in our strategic interests, only then we oppose any country on any particular issue, right? Now, okay, let me sorry, sorry, just let me just take a minute to clarify on the Tibet thing, because otherwise, not here but maybe on Twitter or later on, people watch it, they'll say कि भाई कैसा pro China shill anti national ये वो आदमी है. What I mean is that the amount of disproportionate attention, resources, and bending over backwards that we have done for Tibetan refugees and these people, right? We've probably not even, done. We've actually not even done maybe 20% of that for, let's say, Hindu refugees from Pakistan. By the way, right? We have
Yes.
we have never, in the same manner, we have never acknowledged the kind of atrocities which were happening in Afghanistan, which were happening in Pakistan, or even if you want to take it further, there are many other countries where Hindu sentiments have been hurt, or there are countries where, literally, Hindu beliefs, Hindu ideals are again and again trampled upon, humiliated. Like, for example, if a small country, I'm not going to name the country, but if a small country, which is your neighbor, and which is telling your Indian citizens कि तुम गणेश जी की मूर्ति, शिव जी की मूर्ति, लक्ष्मी जी की मूर्ति अपने चेक इन बैगेज या वट एवर लगेज में नहीं ला सकते हमारे कंट्री में, वरना हम उसको कॉन्फिस्केट करके तोड़ देंगे या जो भी कर देंगे, डिस्ट्रॉय मतलब जला देंगे या जो भी कर देंगे. If you don't even have the power to stop something like that, right? Or if you are not even concerned about something like that, then why are you showing so much of bloody concern for these people, jinke khud ke agenda, the thing with the Tibetan government in exile and these Tibetan organizations is they themselves hide 80% of their not so pleasant history of how, what kind of barbaric system was running that country, feudal system was running that country. I've talked about it on Twitter before. People think that Tibetan monasteries are all about, oh, peace and harmony and lovey-dovey hippie stuff. It's not like that. There there were it was probably at that point of time, that late in history, the most repressive, the most inhumane, violent system of government on this planet, even worse than, I think, Stalin's Soviet Union. I would go as far as saying that, because basically almost like 90%, or I think almost 100% of the land in Tibet which was of any use was owned by the monasteries and the lamas, right? And
Hmm.
80-90% of the population were slaves, practically speaking, were serfs, right?
Yes.
Whose sons were forcibly taken from them and turned into monks and trained to become monks. And since, obviously, according to their religious beliefs, they're supposed to be celibate and they're not supposed to have wives or mistresses or anything. Child abuse, sexual abuse of these little many of these young children was extremely rampant. And this is not even mentioning, matlab, medieval यूरोपियन सर्फडम से भी ज्यादा वर्स कंडीशंस में. जस्ट इमेजिन द काइंड ऑफ टेरेन टिबेट इज. Imagine someone is forcibly taking your children, your child is being abused, raped, and you are being, essentially, you will never get to own any land. You are forever, your family and all your next generations are going to remain serfs. And whatever you produce, 50-60% of that is being directly confiscated. और उसके बाद भी शायद जो कुछ बचा कुचा होगा, that might also be required for some religious ceremony or whatever. So it's a completely barbaric system. I'm not saying that the Chinese have not done any atrocities on there. I'm sure they have. But to say that कि Tibetans को अगर अकेले छोड़ देते तो it would have been, some kind of fucking paradise on earth, is a bloody joke. That's what pisses me off, to be honest. Sorry for the rant.
Yes. See, I have sent a link in inbox saying here is Vamsi Jewelry. You know Vamsi Jewelry? Uh,
Sorry. Can you repeat the name?
Vamsi Jewelry. He's a, I mean, this NRI intellectual. He writes columns for Dharma
It
Dispatch
rings a
and
bell, but I can't recall exactly.
Swaraj Mag and etc. etc. Uh, yeah,
Okay.
so this is so he recently wrote a column in Indian Express saying Dalai Lama should be nominated as the president of India. And this guy is, like I said, he writes for Dharma Dispatch, Swaraj Mag, so he's deep into that IT cell ecosystem. This is a,
Wow.
and he has done. I mean, he's a professor of media studies in US.
It's incredible. I wonder what all the Modi Chalisa enthusiasts had to say about Dalai Lama being the prime minister. What will Modi ji do then? Will he handle the Tibetan government in exile?
Yeah, of course, they are not going to follow through this suggestion, but
Yeah,
the fact
but
that
yeah, even hypothetically,
yeah, but even even the fact that somebody had balls to suggest it, that a
yeah.
Tibetan Buddhist man should lead the Republic of India is asinine. I mean, it's ridiculous, and it only shows that हम तो चाइना से फोकट में पंगा लेना चाहते हैं हमें कोई मतलब नहीं
बे
है
इट इज कंप्लीटली बेमतलब में 56 इंच की वो दिखा शोबाजी करने की लड़ाई है. इट इज वेरी क्लियरली एस्टैब्लिश्ड that there is nothing to be gained by either side, fighting for those patches of arid again. And before some, some very, I know there'll be some very gyani people who will come later on, and defensive offense or all those kind of chaps, the people who watch all that, right, who will be like कि नहीं वहां से टिबेट से ये रिवर आता है, वो ये वो, this is why it's important, we need them as a chip again. See, I again, I have never said that, you know, certain geographical advantages, let's say, right, certain from a certain geopolitical lens, yes, it is necessary to maintain a balance there. It is necessary to make sure China doesn't overwhelm us there. That is fine. But एक point के बाद आप ये सब फालतू चीजों को लेकर कि हम जाके लासा में घुस के आजाद टिबेट बनाएंगे और ये करेंगे वो करेंगे, that has absolutely nothing to do with our geopolitical interests.
This is, I mean, therefore, if you're actually fighting for the patch of land, uh, give the people who are fighting it an access to land. I mean, I'm saying, go for, if you want to be imperial, go full imperial logic. Then to do it. Let's redistribute the patches of land in say Kashmir or Arunachal to the soldiers and officers who serve there. क्या I mean, I would wholeheartedly welcome it. But what I see is those patches of land are not going to be exploited by. I mean, not going to be benefited to any
M-
person who has.
Mainland Indian,
Yeah,
using the
yeah.
politically correct term. हाँ,
Anyone
जैसे
who's
for
putting
example
his
in
life at risk.
yeah,
Anyone who's
no, but
putting
CRT
his
even
life at risk fighting for it.
नॉर्थ ईस्ट में कितनी ही ऐसी वहां पे जगहें होंगी नॉर्थ ईस्ट स्टेट्स में, आई डोंट नो इफ इंटायर स्टेट्स या फिर उनके पर्टिकुलर रीजन्स में, बट ऐसी कितनी ही जगहें हैं जहां पे आज की डेट में भी अ पर्सन, लेट्स से हु इज फ्रॉम मध्य प्रदेश और यूपी और हरियाणा, ही कैन नॉट गो देयर लुकिंग लाइक अ टिपिकल देसी mainland Indian. He cannot set up shop there, or he cannot earn a livelihood there without being extorted or physically attacked, right? तो हम लोग वो सिचुएशन कब फिक्स करेंगे, रादर देन थिंकिंग अबाउट ये ग्रेटर इंडिया पीओके में ये कर देंगे वो कर देंगे, भाई पहले मेक श्योर दैट your people, the core of this nation, right? And let's be pretty honest, savarns, and apart from that, if we are looking at it broadly also, people who are speaking Dravidian languages or Indo-Aryan languages, मतलब जो भी general ये classification हो रहा है, but you know the kind of ethnic groups I'm talking about,
Yes.
they are in a sense, the core of this country. ठीक है, अब someone might like to say this is racist, you are saying कि नागा उतना इंडियन, भाई it is not racist to
नहीं,
point out
रेसिस्ट मैं
कि
बताता हूँ, रेसिस्ट मैं बताता हूँ. Listen, there have been countless exodus and genocides of mainland Indians, or let's say brown people in these northeastern states. They literally have slaughtered all kind of people in those states. और यहाँ आके बोलते तुम रेसिस्ट हो बिकॉज तुमने हमको चिंकी बोल दिया. And this is ridiculous. Like we are racist because we cracked some rude jokes to you, and you have been writing and raping and doing these exodus and genocides. और तुम्हें आज तक कभी racist label नहीं मिला mainstream media से. This
well
is the
said,
privilege that we must be talking
brilliant,
about.
well said.
Real racists are these fucking
हाँ,
northeasterns. These are the real racists. Let's
I mean,
give a search to Wikipedia and take out the record.
let's I mean let's just say physical violence, physical attacks, financial extortion of a minority community in a region, and mainland Indians are minorities in these states, is at the end of the day, any day, much worse, much more racist, much more abusive, and much more violative of a person's human rights than any kind of curses or verbal abuse or any. I'm not saying कि मैं उस चीज को कंडोन कर रहा हूं, मैं कह रहा हूं कि नहीं नहीं, जो जिसको जो बोलना है बोलने दो. आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट, ठीक है वो भी गलत है भाई, लेकिन अगर वो 1 to 10 के स्केल में इट इज एट लेवल 3, तो जो लेवल 8 और 9 पे चीजें हो रही हैं, व्हाई आरंट वी टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट काइंड ऑफ रेसिज्म, राइट? सारी अटेंशन ये लेवल 2-3 रेसिज्म पे क्यों जा रही है?
it's it's deliberate. The left liberal dominated media, or let's just say mainstream media, has created this uh, pervasive myth that you know uh, mainland Indians are a bunch of racists who have been very discriminatory towards these kind of people, and what happens in their states, it's completely whitewashed. Not a, not even a zip. So, so there's that, and I think it's ridiculous portrayal of this
Absolutely.
situation.
Absolutely.
Unfair.
I think, CRT, we have actually had a pretty long conversation. I think lastly we should just, I think, before closing off, briefly talk about the CDS appointment thing, because there have been some there has been some, let's say, social media news slash rumors,
Yes,
regarding that. So please, if you can.
it, I mean, it's a very suspicious thing that they have took this long to appoint a CDS, and there's still no confirmation out there. It's only some IT cell outlets who have been spreading this rumor that a certain Navy Admiral R. Hari Kumar is going to be the next CDS, but it's still not a
Okay, R
confirmed
Hari
report yet.
Kumar. Okay,
Yes,
okay,
he was made Navy Chief just last year in October or November. So even his
right.
tenure as a Navy Chief has not completed 1 year yet, and now he's being promoted to CDS as per rumors. So that's an interesting thing. But why did they not appoint CDS before announcing this Agniveer scheme, so that we would have a senior most military officials endorsement to the scheme? So that's a very suspicious angle.
Right.
And one thing is that not talked about is there Bipin Rawat's death, Om Shanti, uh, has not received as much scrutiny that I think it should have, because it was
Definitely,
quite
definitely.
a mysterious circumstance in which he died, and there.
And generally, the experts, the defense watchers, and the ones who like to follow these technical things also, in weapons acquisitions and all, they were all saying that the that particular chopper, that flight vehicle, it was one of our best. It was generally supposed to be one of the much more reliable ones, right?
Yes, it was a recent purchase, right?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't exactly remember which model was it, but I'm sure if the CDS was traveling on it and so other senior personnel were on it, it would have been a machine which must be thoroughly maintained, thoroughly checked, rechecked again and again. So just randomly crashing, I'm not saying it can't happen, but again, odds would say that it is something which is supposed to be a very remote, very very unlikely event to happen, right, in normal circumstances. So definitely that adds to the suspicion.
And there have been quite a few things that can be noted, that Bipin Rawat was, I mean, upfront conservative man. He was against the idea of women in army. Contrary to that, we have now an army chief, General Naravni, who is very welcoming about women being in army. Uh, then
you
there's
know I
another.
Definitely, yeah, yeah, please go on.
Then he was against homosexuality and adultery in army.
100%.
Meanwhile, India has recently, not recently, it has been 2 years, it was in 2020, US India signed BECA agreement with US, which to share intelligence with US, and US has a clear condition that
Agenda.
it will not share intelligence with countries that do not allow homosexuality. That
Holy
so
shit.
there is again that angle too, and people of course frame it that, oh, it was Supreme Court that forced the army to open its gate for uh, permanent commission for women officers. All right, but the thing is, who was fighting the that case for permanent commission for women officers? It was BJP's own politicians like Meenakshi Lekhi. Now, let's say
Right.
if BJP government was in full agreement with General Bipin Rawat's that women should not be given permanent commission in army, BJP would not have allowed Meenakshi Lekhi to fight that case. How could they would have they would have expelled her from the party? Why is Meenakshi Lekhi was not expelled for going
And
against?
CRT, sorry, just to chip in and mention one point. As we have seen previously, जब बात कोई ऐसे इशू पे आती है ना जहां पे गवर्नमेंट का एक्चुअल प्रॉपर स्ट्रॉन्ग स्टैंड है, मतलब इधर आइडियोलॉजिकल और फॉर वट एवर इलेक्ट्रल पर्पसेज, इलेक्ट्रल गेन्स के पर्सपेक्टिव से, वहां वो कुछ सुप्रीम कोर्ट कुछ नहीं देखते हैं. वी हैव सीन दिस इन द SC/ST एक्ट का केस वेयर द सुप्रीम कोर्ट had effectively made it more fair by allowing, एटलीस्ट कि भाई अगर मेरे अगेंस्ट किसी ने फॉल्स एक्यूजेशन किया है, ज्यादा एविडेंस नहीं है, तो मैं एटलीस्ट यू नो बेल ले सकूं, राइट? एटलीस्ट आई कैन हैव सम रिकोर्स, आई कैन गो टू सम जुडिशियल बॉडी कि भाई मेरे को थ्रेटन किया जा रहा है विद दिस STI, वट एवर, राइट? एटलीस्ट दे हैड दैट मच of रीजनेबल सेंस एंड सेंस ऑफ जस्टिस. ठीक है, काला कोर्ट को बहुत गाली देते हैं जुडिशरी वगैरह को, मेनी टाइम्स लेजिट, मेनी टाइम्स नॉट, बट चक ऑल ऑफ दैट असाइड, इन दिस पर्टिकुलर इंस्टेंस द सुप्रीम कोर्ट had taken the right stance. They're not gone to the extent I would have liked, but at least they had made that act less open to misuse and less open to being used to extort and abuse upper castes, right? But all of a sudden, the Modi government came with an ordinance which nullified that judgment's entire effect completely. जहां पे आपकी एक्चुअल इंटरेस्ट होते हैं ना, वहां पे यू डोंट स्टॉप फॉर अ सेकंड बिफोर ब्रिंगिंग इन एन ऑर्डिनेंस. एंड कोई सुप्रीम कोर्ट नहीं मानते ये लोग, ठीक है? एंड as far as the law is concerned, legally also, it is not that difficult for the legislature and the executive combined to upturn, or at least to fundamentally change a Supreme Court ruling's effect using such means, until and unless it's a question of basic structure or fundamental rights, something like that. उतनी अगर कॉम्प्लेक्स बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर टाइप की चीजें ना हो तो इतना कंट्रोवर्सी भी नहीं होता है. तो यहाँ पे जब अगर बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर की एग्जैक्ट बात नहीं आई थी, ऐसा भी कोई वो नहीं था कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर को अमेंड करना है, कोई पार्ट को ही हटाना है, कोई नए पार्ट को इंसर्ट करना है, ऐसी कोई बड़ी बात भी नहीं थी. Why couldn't they have brought an ordinance here that no, through this ordinance we are telling the Supreme Court, you cannot adjudicate upon this armed forces recruitment matter. This is a very sensitive issue. We are not going to allow the recruitment of such people into combat roles, or we are not going to allow a permanent commission for women in these branches for such reasons, right? You could have brought in an ordinance. Why didn't you do so?
And there are, I mean, people think that Supreme Court is totally, I mean, independent body because it has this collegium system of self-appointment. But that has not been the case lately. One thing that Modi government shrewdly did after 2014 is they brought in changes in the method of appointment. They included an intelligence bureau background check before the appointment of any judge. The background check was done by law ministry and intelligence bureau. So, and what is what are these reports of background check of judges before they are appointed to Supreme Court? It's not shared publicly. So, what this is again a guess, but it's quite possible that using these background checks, they have acquired the pressure point of judges, and judiciary is not as independent as it seems. I mean, ju- just before Ram Mandir verdict, 1 year before the Mandir verdict, I think it was in December, the Chief Justice India of accused of sexual harassment by his own legal staff, and that woman was harassed and handed down for accusing a chief justice. And uh, what happened? Well, what can government do in this case? I mean, they could have held a trial in parliament and impeached, or maybe not in case he was innocent. Uh, but they could have held the process in parliament of impeaching the judge. If he wasn't innocent, they should not have. But the even process was not held in parliament. What they did, they allowed the judge to administer his own case. Entire bench, which included the CJ himself, sat and they declared, "Yeah, I am innocent. I didn't sexually harass anybody." And the next thing you know, Ram Mandir verdict gets passed. Judge retires. CGI retires. Now he is in the Ram Sabha. Okay, Rajya Sabha on a presidential granted ticket. So it has been quite a good deal. And anyone who says that BJP has no influence on judiciary is just kidding himself.
Yeah, yeah, and this is not even to mention the fact that as far as the elites are concerned, whether it be civil society, judiciary, your babus, politicians, industrialists, they're all connected somehow or the other. Let's be honest, right? There are so many arrangements of quid pro quo, you scratch my back, I scratch your back, which we don't even know 1% of
and
in the public.
uh, and I want to make sure I'm not saying this out of concern for judiciary. I'm not a big fan of Kala courts myself. I'm not doing this high toba for the institutional autonomy. If you ask me, I'm not concerned about that. And if uh, ju- judiciary is being used for Hindu causes, uh, you are all welcome to do that, but why you do this only selectively for uh, cheap electoral gimmicks? Why don't you utilize judiciary for real causes? And that's how whenever some real thing that could benefit the nation can be done, they allow judiciary
Yeah,
to steamroll them. So it's
yeah,
there is a collusion, and it's not a goodwilling collusion. Let's not
absolutely.
pat BJP's back for 56 breaches of exploiting the
Right.
sexual harassment allegation, which might be a trend. I don't know. For Ram Mandir verdict.
Absolutely. एंड फिर वही जैसे चैरिटी वाले हम उसमें बात कर रहे थे. सी द थिंग इज, ये दे नो दैट यहाँ पे जो बात आती है, ये एक हिस्टोरिकल, मतलब ऑब्वियसली इट इज अ हिस्टोरिकल वाटरशेड विक्ट्री. ठीक है, वो आज से 20 साल बाद भी ये चीज लेके घूमेंगे और वोट मांगेंगे लोगों से कि देखो हमने राम मंदिर बनवाया, ये किया, वो किया. ठीक है, और उस चीज में इट विल ऑलवेज बी क्रेडिट टू मोदी जी, क्रेडिट टू भाजपा, क्रेडिट टू आरएसएस, एंड नॉट क्रेडिट टू जस्टिस, ये वो. उस चीज में तो 100% क्रेडिट टू द गवर्नमेंट. लेकिन कोई भी ऐसी चीज में जहां पे फ्रॉम अ कंजर्वेटिव आइडियोलॉजिकल व्यू पॉइंट, या फिर जहाँ पे हिंदू या सवर्णों के कोर इंटरेस्ट की बात आती है, सवर्णों को तो छोड़ दो, सवर्णों को तो इन लोगों ने मतलब ऐसे समझ रखा है कि ये तो हमारे पालतू वोट बैंक हैं, हम बिल्कुल मतलब इनको 80% टैक्स भी कर देंगे तो ये सवर्ण तो हम पे वैसे ही वोट कमल पे ही डालेंगे, ठीक है, तो दैट इज देयर मेंटालिटी. बट दे आर नेवर ever going to acknowledge their defeat when when the judiciary gives a verdict which fundamentally adds to the slow poisoning of Hindu society, Hindu civilizational ethos. ठीक है, अगर कल की डेट को एक ऐसा जजमेंट आता है जिसमें हिंदू टेम्पल्स के लेट्स से रिकंस्ट्रक्शन में, या फिर हिंदू टेम्पल्स में लाउड स्पीकर यूज करना, ऐसी कोई भी चीज, ठीक है, जिससे मतलब आम ग्रास रूट्स लेवल पे आम हिंदू को अफेक्ट पड़ता है, लोकल हिंदू कम्युनिटीज को पे एडवर्स अफेक्ट पड़ता है, वहां पे जो इतनी इतना बड़ा फंडामेंटल एक अगर लॉस होगा, एक ऐसा कोई जजमेंट आता है, तो दे विल नेवर इवन एक्सेप्ट 0.1% ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. लाइक कि नहीं नहीं, हमने तो बहुत कोशिश की, लेकिन ये देखो यार, ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट, ये जजेस, ये वकील लोग ऐसे हैं, ये हैं जजेस ऐसे हैं, दे आर ऑल फ्रॉम JNU एंड ऑल, एंड दैट इज वाई मोदी जी नीड्स इवन मोर सीट्स नाउ, ठीक है, इनसे लड़ने के लिए. लेकिन जहां पे बात ऐसी आती है जहां पे कुछ भी आपका मतलब वो विन होता है जो विच एंड लेट्स बी प्रिटी ऑनेस्ट, दी राम मंदिर victory, and no doubt it is a great victory after all these years. It was the issue which at least at least a namesake Hindutva ideological movement came to power. At least it gave some space for genuine Hindu voices to speak up. But at the end of the day, उसका जो प्रैक्टिकल इफेक्ट है ग्रास रूट्स लेवल पर, राइट, एट अ प्रैक्टिकल लेवल, इज इट enabling Hindus to set up their own autonomous institutions more easily? No. Is it allowing Hindus to reconstruct ancient let's say temples which were destroyed, जिसके ऊपर अभी कोई गवर्नमेंट सेक्रेटेरिएट या फिर कोई मस्जिद या चर्च या कोई चीज बनी हो? No, it is not allowing for that. Is it allowing Hindus to more freedom of expression to defend their religious beliefs when someone abuses their gods? No, it is not allowing that. तो प्रैक्टिकल उस पे इसका अफेक्ट नहीं पड़ा है. नो डाउट सिंबॉलिकली इट्स अ ग्रेट विक्ट्री, बट हिंदूज के इतने सारे और जो इश्यूज हैं जहां पे फंडामेंटली हम लोग कमजोर हो रहे हैं, we are getting weaker in teaching the next generation our scriptures, let's say, or not even scriptures, basics, very basic fundamentals और very basic हिंदू हिस्ट्री, या फिर एनसीईआरटी बुक्स की आप बात कर लो. इन सब ये जो इश्यूज होते हैं ना, जिस पे शायद इतना हो हल्ला नहीं मचता है, इतना इलेक्ट्रल शायद इसके वो लोग इसके बारे में इसको इलेक्ट्रल इशू ना सोचें, बट प्रैक्टिकली विच अफेक्ट्स हिंदू सिविलाइजेशन so much in the long term, they have made almost zero progress, right? And this is the problem. And not matlab the number of Hindus who need to be asking questions like this कि आपने RTE में माइनॉरिटीज को जो फेवरेबल ट्रीटमेंट है उसको नलिफाई क्यों नहीं किया? आज की डेट में इतनी जगहों पे हिंदू टेम्पल्स के को डिस्ट्रॉय करके जो मस्जिद बनाए गए वो आज की डेट पे भी खड़े हैं, उस पर कुछ क्यों नहीं हुआ? हिंदू प्रीस्ट जो मतलब कई जगहों पे मतलब ऐसी सिचुएशन में है कि अगर शायद उनकी इनकम 20-30% कम हो जाए तो शायद उनको भूखे मरने वाली हालत हो जाए. उन प्रीस्ट के वेलफेयर के बारे में आपने कुछ नहीं किया. तो दीज काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस, नॉट इवन आई थिंक 5% of the number of Hindus we need actually to be asking those questions are actually asking. Very few people now have started to do it, but we just don't have the kind of limelight we need.
Exactly, and they they I have said it a lot of times in my Telegram channel that you think Hindu unity is B, BJP is appealing for Hindu unity for Hindus' aspirations, but they want Hindu unity, but they are not asking for Hindu unity for Hindu aspirations. They want Hindu unity for Modi ji's aspirations. So I mean, we are we, this appeal to unity is actually a ploy for exploitation. It's not coming out of any goodwill, and they want to. I mean, kind of like monopolize the not just political and communal authority on the Hindus. They want to monopolize the spiritual authority too. They
Well said. Yeah.
and all kind of aspect of authority that you can think, whether it's aca-
Right.
academic and intellectual. Like they want they want to be authority on what was the Hindu history and how it happened. They want to authorize what is Hindu philosophy and what are our values and ideals. They want to be a monopoly authority on political power and legal aspect and everything. So there is this, if
यार इन लोगों
some
ने
it's a
मतलब
church. So it's
शंकराचार्य के इंस्टीट्यूशन को भी नहीं छोड़ा है। वहां पे
yeah,
भी इन
yeah,
लोगों ने ये बोल दिया है कि असली शंकराचार्य वो है जो बीजेपी को सपोर्ट करता है। मतलब दे हैव, आई डोंट नो हाउ लो दे विल फॉल, बट
yeah,
इट्स,
yeah, I mean कौन से ग्रंथ में लिखा है?
matlab
They have
seriously, like they have, they are willing to put up fake religious gurus, fake heads of ancient Hindu streams of thought, just कि मतलब ये ये असली सनातन धर्म के बारे में आप उनसे सीखिए जो कमल पे वोट करते हैं। मतलब इज दैट व्हाट आवर रिलीजन हैज बीन रिड्यूस्ड टू, दैट
yeah,
जो कमल पे विश्वास नहीं करता है वो हिंदुइज्म के बारे में भी नहीं बोल सकता है।
when Shankaracharya set out to I mean, revive Hinduism, and he was debating over these saints and scholars uh, all over the country. I mean, he could have been easily debated in the debate by, अच्छा तो तुम हिंदुइज्म रिवाइव करोगे लेकिन तुमने कभी मोदी जी को वोट दिया है? I mean, Adi Shankaraचार्य should have quit right then and went back. Okay, sorry, man, the conspiracy.
I'm and it's not even funny anymore. It is literally how tens of millions of people have been brainwashed to think कि हमारे धर्म, मोदी जी सिर्फ पॉलिटिकल लीडर नहीं है, सिर्फ बीजेपी के लीडर नहीं है, वो हिंदुइज्म के अथॉरिटी बन गए हैं।
Yeah,
एंड फॉर ओके ठीक है, योगी जी का चलो ठीक है, उनका कुछ बैग, एंड आई एम नॉट, दिस इज नॉट योगी सिंपिंग, बट ठीक है, अगर योगी जी के ऊपर कोई बोलता है कि इस पर्टिकुलर संप्रदाय के व्यूज मेरे को ज्यादा वो अथॉरिटेटिव लगते हैं वर्सेस सम अदर संप्रदाय, चलो वो एक डिस्कशन हो, वो फिर भी हो सकता है एट अ सरफेस लेवल, बट हाउ कैन यू से दैट just एक प्रिलिमिनरी फिल्टर फॉर एनी रिलीजियस डिबेट हैज टू बी कि वो बंदा बीजेपी सपोर्टर है कि नहीं, पहले ये बताओ। मतलब इट्स माइंड बॉगलिंग डूड।
it's it's laughable really, and I mean कल तो मैं इस पे मीम भी पोस्ट करूंगा श्योर, and
And then and I'm really sorry to say man, but then actually हिंदुओं को खुद सोचना चाहिए कि हम लोगों के when we always we keep on thinking कि यार हमारे जो इश्यूज हैं, हमारे जो सेंटिमेंट्स हैं, जब वो हर्ट होते हैं तो कोई इतना सीरियसली क्यों नहीं लेता, हमारे कल्चरल उसको हमारे कल्चरल हेरिटेज को जब डैमेज किया जाता है, कोई उसकी तरफ एग्रेशन दिखाता है, तो उसको उस पर गवर्नमेंट स्लोली क्यों एक्ट करती है? इसीलिए स्लोली एक्ट करती है यार, बिकॉज यू आर ट्रीटिंग योर ओन रिलीजन लाइक अ जोक। आप मतलब लिटरली थाउजेंड्स ऑफ इयर्स ओल्ड एस्टैब्लिश्ड एक जो लाइन ऑफ, जैसे एज एन एग्जाम्पल शंकराचार्य, आदि शंकराचार्य के टाइम से जो चलते आ रहे हैं, आप उनके सामने एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी जिसको मतलब कितने साल, 100 साल, 150 साल नहीं, मतलब व्हाट आई थिंक इट्स बीन व्हाट 80 100 years और समथिंग सिंस बीजेपी और इट्स प्रेडिसेसर हैज बीन देयर, एंड उसको आप ऐसे दिखा रहे हो कि मतलब that this particular tradition of Shankaracharya's is a small speck in comparison to RSS and this ecosystem. Matlab, it is absolutely shameful, and the thing is, I don't want to be that person कि मैं किसी को pure Hindu certificate दूंगा. I'm not that person. But seriously, can you ever imagine in an Islamic country or in a Christian country even कि कोई आदमी ऐसे जाके बोले कि नहीं यार, पोप जो कहता है उससे मेरे को फर्क नहीं पड़ता, लेकिन जो डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प या रॉन डिसैंटिस या टेड क्रूज बोलेगा मेरे लिए तो वही द क्रिश्चियन धर्म है. मतलब पीपल वुड मतलब लाफ एट दैट आइडिया, राइट? लेकिन यहाँ पे इट पीपल हैव मेड अ कंप्लीट मॉकरी.
Exactly, and there's the thing that Sangh is our new church and Modi is the Pope. Like that has become the new mentality here, and uh, you know, just like a thought doesn't care about her sense because she knows simp आज है कल भी है परसों भी है, no matter how I treat him. Modi behaves like the same thought towards
Exactly.
his simps, and this it's kind of like I mean, of course, it's a kind of personality that's given, but
Yeah,
this cultishness has to be opposed at all costs because
एब्सोल्युटली. यार लोग
it's not.
उनका जैसे इतना मजाक उड़ाते हैं, चलो ठीक है, जैसे देयर अ सर्टेन टाइप ऑफ हार्डकोर कल्ट फैन, जैसे साउथ इंडियन हीरोज के काफी होते हैं. मतलब जो उनकी नई मूवी आती है तो पोस्टर पे नारियल फोड़ेंगे और दूध चढ़ाए, मतलब दोस काइंड ऑफ पीपल जो बिल्कुल
अरे
फनाटिकल होते हैं,
हीरोइनों के
ठीक है.
मंदिर बना चुके हैं ये लोग, इन्होंने तो
हाँ,
हीरोइनों के
मतलब
मंदिर
ठीक है,
बना
ठीक है, आप ठीक है, उनका मजाक उड़ाते हो, बट ये लोग उनसे भी बदतर हैं जिन्होंने मोदी हो, योगी हो, जो भी हो, आपके जो फेवरेट पॉलिटिशियन की जो आप सिंपिंग करते हो ना, आप उन लोगों से, वो एटलीस्ट कम से कम वो हीरो को, वो आदमी अगर साल में 365 डेज है तो वो सिंपिंग वो 5 दिन 10 दिन करेगा, ठीक है, तो उसके एक दो रिलीजेस ज्यादा नहीं होंगे एक साल में, राइट?
हम्म,
वो 10 दिन करेगा, बट आप 365 डेज 24 आवर्स एवरी डे लगे हुए हो व्हाट्सएप पे, टेलीग्राम पे, ट्विटर पे, यूट्यूब पे, सब जगह पे मोदी जी की सिंपिंग करने में. यू आर 100 टाइम्स वर्स देन दैट गाय. मतलब गॉड भी क्या, आपने उसको अपना गॉड, अपना पति, अपनी पत्नी, पता नहीं क्या क्या मान लिया है.
it, it stems from some deep-seated insecurity. I mean, there is a huge what can I say? I mean, Islamophobia is a word that comes to mind, but I don't want to use that word because that word has been turned into a joke by liberals. But what can I say? Let's say Abdul phobia. I mean, there is a deep-seated insecurity about that, and it's from that place where this simping stems from. It's the result of all this paranoia and insecurity that any day now, there can be a uh, there, there can be a riot and we might be killed, and the only person that can save us is Modi ji.
Yeah, I think it's basically, I don't know, someone had used this term once. It's basically you're vicariously fulfilling your deepest desires. It's like how that auto rickshaw wala who is like a super Sallu Bhai fan, वो सल्लू भाई की whatever दबंग या जो भी टाइगर वाइगर देख के उसको भी लगता है कि हाँ भाई, मैं भी ऐसे 8 गुंडे और पाकिस्तानी स्पाइज या चाइनीज जो भी आएंगे, मैं भी उनको अपने डोले शोलों से ऐसे हवा में 360 डिग्रीज उड़ाऊंगा. मैं भी ये मतलब सपनों में तो करता ही हूँ, बट भाई के थ्रू वाइकेरियसली आज मैं थिएटर में भी कर रहा हूँ. सो आई थिंक इट्स दैट, आई थिंक फंडामेंटली इट्स द सेम थिंग, नो? It's that animal instinct.
It's that. Oh, by the way, there's one thing about CDS that I missed to mention because I mean topic divert again. But the purpose for which CDS post was created was uh, theaterization of the forces, and now that he's dead, we have no idea where what's the status of the of that process. And there was, of course, some turf war related to that project because IAF chief Air Force Chief R.K. Bhadoria was against this theaterization model as envisioned by Bipin Raut because it would have, I mean, subjugated IAF below the rank of army to, and there was that angle too. I mean, what happened to that? Where are we on that? So
Right.
that's one thing that we have lost any progress upon. And
In fact, CRT, I just wanted to mention another thing about the CDS thing also. I mean, I don't want to take it, like talk about anyone personally, especially not a departed person. I mean, I also personally, being a Garhwali myself, coming from a
this is fine. This is
similar
fine.
sort of, family background. Obviously, I have a lot of sympathies for him and his, surviving family members. And he was a great gentleman, a very conservative, traditional sort of person. And he was firm on these issues which actually mattered for the integrity of the forces. Massive respect. But at the end of the day, the institution of the CDS, again, it has, in some ways, made it easier for political powers to, smoothly force upon certain changes which may have required more lobbying or more, convincing each force individually, let's say. One example I can give you, this was something which, I think, General Rawat also, I think, must have given his go ahead to. Like, it's a very small thing. जैसे आर्मी की कैंटीन होती है, तो
Hmm.
उसमें there were two moves which were quite unpopular. I know people might find this a bit funny, but तो जैसे जैसे कार्स और एसयूवीज वगैरह होती हैं, तो उसमें देर आर सर्टन रिस्ट्रिक्शंस, राइट? कि ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको अगर कार्स में वट एवर 10, 15, 20% लेस देन मार्केट रेट पे कैंटीन से आप खरीद सकते हो. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आप हर 1.5-2 साल में आप एसयूवी बदल रहे हो, राइट? There is a certain like that only in a set number of years you can utilize that privilege once, right? So, and on top of that, there was another thing that there is another thing that there are certain limits कि इतने लाख से ऊपर की गाड़ियों पे ये एप्लीकेबल नहीं होगा, कैंटीन के थ्रू आप प्रोक्योर नहीं कर सकते. तो बेसिकली जनरल रावत, वन मूव विच द गवर्नमेंट पुश्ड फॉरवर्ड वाज कि उस लिमिट को और घटा देना. मतलब बेसिकली पहले ऐसा हो रहा था कि काफी सारी, मतलब लेट्स से ऑलमोस्ट सेमी प्रीमियम टाइप गाड़ियां भी, which let's say were costing, something like maybe 25-30 lakhs or maybe something like that, were being procured in this manner, and it was obviously costing the exchequer, right? तो दिस मूव वाज पुश्ड फॉरवर्ड कि उस लिमिट को और मतलब सब्सटैंशियली कम कर दिया गया, और शायद द नंबर ऑफ इयर्स जो वो जिस ब्रैकेट में आप खरीद सकते हो उसको भी एक्सटेंड कर दिया गया, ताकि लोग इस चीज को और कम यूटिलाइज करें. एंड अनदर थिंग वाज कि जो ये, हाँ या, जो प्रॉपर इंपोर्टेड फॉरेन लिकर थी उसको भी दे बैन बेसिकली. मतलब दे आर टू डिफरेंट थिंग्स, राइट? वन इज IMFL, which is Indian manufactured foreign liquor, right? Just to give an example, uh, all of these popular whiskey brands, you see RS, RC, these are the very bare, like, cheap ones which I'm mentioning. I'm not saying these are the ones which sell the most, but just to give an example,
Hmm.
इवन ये आई थिंक रेड लेबल ब्लैक लेबल वगैरह भी इंडिया में बनती है, एज फार एज आई नो, राइट? So but there were many brands which were being imported of whiskey and I guess vodka, these kind of things, which were quite on the expensive side, and unpe matlab bina duty वगैरह के matlab whatever at a very nominal rate they were being sold. But when the CDS came, and the government was able to push this thing through also कि अब से ये foreign liquor वाला import भी बंद रहेगा. So obviously many people जिनका कोई जैसे in the army there might have been certain personnel जिनका एक कोई favorite foreign scotch का brand होगा, right? कोई single malt का कोई बहुत ही शौकीन आदमी हो, like there might be certain people like that. And I'm not commenting about the moral aspect of it, but I'm just giving these certain examples कि इन चीजों पे, ठीक है, जहाँ लिकर, कार्स, अब इन चीजों पे ऑब्वियसली ये थोड़े एक्सट्रीम इश्यूज हो गए बिकॉज पीपल विल टेक अ मॉरल स्टैंड ऑन इट. बट आप कोई और चीज भी ले लो, ठीक है, कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक पर्टिकुलर जैसे कुछ कुछ जगहों पे अगर लेट्स से सेकंड सैटरडे ऑफ हो, या सेकंड सैटरडे पे आपको एक पर्टिकुलर प्रिविलेज मिले कि यू कैन गो टू द ऑफिस वेयरिंग सेमी फॉर्मल्स और समथिंग लाइक दैट, उसमें भी और रिस्ट्रिक्शन ले आना है, या कोई भी ऐसी टाइप की चीजें सर्विस रूल्स में या कॉमन एवरीडे रेगुलेशंस में, या फिर कैंटीन से रिलेटेड या कुछ भी ऐसी चीजों से रिलेटेड छोटे मोटे जो चेंजेस थे, आई थिंक these kind of changes which might have attracted much more opposition earlier on, I think the introduction of CDS perhaps also made this very smooth for the government. और इसमें भी मतलब उन्होंने वही धंधोबाजी ही की है. इट इज नॉट लाइक कि वो बोल रहे हैं कि फॉरेन लिकर इसलिए मत इंपोर्ट करो क्योंकि ये तो खराब बुरी चीज है, बुरी बला है शराब. नो नो, इट्स ऑब्वियसली टू basically get that duty customs वाला पैसा, right? So yeah.
यस. क्या कहते हैं, यहाँ कमेंट सेक्शन में मोदी जी हैं, डोवाल हैं और सुधीर चौधरी जी हैं. उनको मैं अपनी तरफ से हेलो बोलना चाहूँगा.
अरे
काफी अच्छे कमेंट्स चल रहे हैं.
नमस्कार नमस्कार महोदय. क्या शेरो शायरी चल मोदी जी के साथ आई थिंक एक दिन मोदी जी का प्रॉपर कुछ गजल मिक्स टाइप बनाना चाहिए यार. गजल स्लैश उर्दू वुड म्यूजिकल क्लासिक्स, सम इमरान हाशमी टियर.
हाँ, of course it fits him. यहाँ पे
Yeah,
Sorry,
if you guys have any ideas, please Twitter, Telegram पे you can forward them, or
या
even in the comments of the video.
या तो यही कमेंट कर दीजिए या फिर टेलीग्राम पे आप
हाँ
अपने सजेशन दे सकते हैं,
हाँ
खासकर
हाँ,
मोदी जी.
आप अपने
मेरे
प्लीज
को
म्यूजिक के लिंक भी डाल दीजिए, मेक थिंग्स इजियर.
यस, लिंक जरूर भेजिए, आप जो भी शायरी भेज रहे
हाँ
थे.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. नुसरत फतेह and I don't know some other those guys, those what do you call them, उस्ताद. ये सब
उस्ताद.
उस्तादों के मास्टर पीसेस भेजिए आप, हम मोदी जी के मास्टर स्ट्रोक्स उसके साथ अटैच करते हैं.
Okay.
So CRT, yeah, I think any final comments from your side?
Yes, I think there needs to be a part two because there are still some aspects that I wanted to discuss, but
Yeah,
topics got
yes,
diverted.
yeah.
So
I think many people have gone to sleep also.
yes, I think for the next time we will leave it to that.
Definitely. Again, CRT, you know that every time we do this duet podcast live stream type of thing, it's always great fun for me, personally speaking. So thanks a lot again.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks
So
for having
hopefully
me.
soon. Yeah. Part 2, guys. Let us know any specific questions also if you want to put in. Okay. Bye bye, guys. Good night. Enjoy Friday party. But again, nothing immoral or against Kamal. Please remember, party within your limits. Jai Bhajpa, Jai Modi.